Men in groups with long beards and mustaches, dressed in every variety of garment, with one exception, the slouched hat, the unmistakable uniform of a Texas Ranger, and a brace of pistols around their waist, who were occupied drying their blankets, cleaning and fixing their guns, and some employed cooking at different fires, while others were grooming their horses. A rougher looking set we never saw. They were without tents, and a miserable shed afforded them the only shelter. Captain McCullough introduced us to his officers and many of his men, who appeared orderly and well-mannered people. But from their rough exterior, it was hard to tell who or what they were. Notwithstanding their with ferocious and outlaw look, there were among them doctors and lawyers and many a college graduate. That was a description by a Louisianan when he first encountered Texans during the war with Mexico. That sort of idea of a rough and tumble set that on the exterior looks ferocious, but once you get to know them are fairly well heeled and well educated, that's kind of the Texans of the 1850s. So what kind of place was Texas in the 1850s? Well, in 1850, there's a little better than 212,000 whites that live in Texas who brought with them 58,000 slaves. A decade later, there's nearly 605,000 white Texans and 182,000 slaves. So, in essence, slavery is the reason that Texas grows in the 1850s. In fact, slavery increases by 214% in that decade. Well, why is slavery such an integral part to Texas right after annexation? It's pretty simple. 75% of the people that moved to Texas are from the South. So, the population triples in that decade. The number of slaves follows right along, indexes right along with that, and at the end of that decade, Texas is home to a vibrant, young, predominantly male population on the make. So where did they live? Where were Texas's biggest cities? Well, San Antonio tops the list at 8,200 folks. Galveston comes in close with just about 7,300. Houston comes in about 4,800 folks, and Austin, the capital of the state, is at 3,500. Those are pretty small numbers when compared against another frontier state, Wisconsin. Its capital, Milwaukee, has 20,000 people in 1850. So, Texas is not a place where large cities grow. Well, and we'll explain why here in a second. But, as you guessed, it probably has something to do with agriculture and the expansion of slavery. See, there's a 600% increase in cotton production in this same decade. And cottonland sells for about $6 an acre. So the value of Texas real estate is going up. Well, if you want to take a look at what the value of hands are working that cotton acreage at $6 an acre, figure a field hand would probably fetch $400. By 1860, that same field hand would traffic for $800. So even the value, the capital value of slaves in Texas is increasing over this decade. Skilled slaves, we're talking about folks that can fix things and direct things. They may fetch $1,200 to $2,000 per slave. Well, how many people in Texas own slaves? About 1 in 4, actually. Now, the number of slaves that these slave owners owned in Texas was usually about 4 or fewer. So slavery is a small and intimate affair with Texans. Why is that? Well, primarily because these are new people coming out to start new plantations. They're on their way up. So you start small, but they're hoping to get bigger. Well, in Texas in 1850, 27.4% of the population is enslaved. In 1860, that's jumping up to 30.2% of the total population. Clearly, the Southern agriculture built on slavery is what is the trend in Texas in the 1850s.